Welcome to Vinnie Politan Investigates. I'm Ted Rowlands. Filling in for Vinnie, the subject of our investigation is a 15-year-old boy who hasn't been seen since February 25th, when his mother says he went to bed and the next morning he was gone. Days have turned into weeks and weeks into months, but the search continues for Sebastian Rogers. Here is his story. Inside this beautiful neighborhood in Hendersonville, Tennessee, there's an unsolved mystery. It was a Sunday night going into a Monday morning, and 15-year-old Sebastian Rogers was supposed to be inside his home sleeping. His mother, Katie Proudfoot, says Sebastian went to bed around 9 o'clock, but was making some noises an hour later, including, she says, a thud sound. Katie says she told him to go to sleep, and she herself went to bed at midnight. Then, at 6 a.m., Katie says she woke up, went into Sebastian's room to get him ready for school, but he was gone. Sebastian's stepfather, Chris Proudfoot, wasn't at home, and his father was 45 minutes away at work. Police responded and began trying to figure out what happened. That was February 26, 2024. And as the days and weeks, and now months have passed, there's still no sign of Sebastian, no sign of foul play, and no answers about what happened. Did someone harm Sebastian? Did he just walk away? We're searching for those answers as we investigate the mysterious disappearance of Sebastian Rogers. And for weeks after Sebastian's disappearance, a massive search effort took place over the areas of Tennessee, near and far from Sebastian's home in Hendersonville. Multiple law enforcement agencies participated. There was ground, aerial, water searches. Nothing has led to the return of Sebastian. Now, official law enforcement agencies, they've completely dialed back, at least with organized searches, but another group of investigators is still working very hard to find him. Here is an update we received today from Dog the Bounty Hunter and At Night Private Intelligence, a branch of One World. New leads suggest possible sightings or related activity in Oregon and New York. And we are pursuing all tips with heightened urgencies. And that brings us to our first question of this hour, and that's an obvious one. Where is Sebastian Rogers tonight, as so many people continue to look for him and worry about this young man? Let's bring in Dwayne Chapman, a.k.a. Dog the Bounty Hunter. He's with us. He's joined this search effort for Sebastian, and he has dedicated a lot of resources, including his time, and attorney Joe Lesniak, who's assisting with the legal aspects of this search. Good evening to both of you. Dog, let's start with the updates. Where are we here? And if you could, just give us a little bit of more detail on these possible leads in specifically, it sounds like the Pacific Northwest, Oregon, and then something over on the New York-Canadian border.
Well, first of all, you know, I appreciate you having us on the show, and I'm glad my lawyer's there. Let me tell you something, because sometimes I stick my foot in my mouth. So, Mr. Joe, are you there, brother?
I'm here, Dog.
Thank you, sir. So, first of all, I don't mean to spin this, but you said a lot of law enforcement and volunteers and all that were out there searching. Let me tell you the truth, and nothing but the truth. Chris Proudfoot was threatening all kind of people that they should go home. Why are they there? He allegedly sprayed some neighbor with water, you know, because they were asking. So a lot of people, let's say, tried to, you know, help and volunteer, but Proudfoot and his cronies, or maybe by himself, was threatening them, stopping them. And I don't know why the people that were threatened and you know, threatened by him allegedly didn't call the police, or what is it called, the TBI? I don't know why the TBI hasn't done nothing, unless they're neck deep in it too. I talked to one of the guys, and you know, it was ridiculous. We want the FBI, the marshals. We need the FBI. We need the marshals in on this, and let me tell you about them. They will find what happened to the little boy. They will find Sebastian what happened to him.
What do you think happened to him, Dwayne? I mean, it seems it's very hard to get your head around that he has not turned up after this long of a period of time. Do you believe he was abducted? Is he? What's your gut telling you now that you know enough and have invested enough here? What's your gut say?
Well, first of all, please call me dog. That's okay to call me dog. And there's a lot of possibilities. Okay, the worst possibility, of course, you could guess that. But we've checked into sex slaves. There's a lot of kids that are autistic that it's unbelievable, from 5 to 18 years old, little boys and little girls that are in the sex trade. They're catching them right now all over Tennessee. They just caught a kid, I think 8 or 9 years old, yesterday or the day before. So, we want to show those kids pictures of Sebastian. We want to show them those little kids got, sometimes they can ID someone a lot better than anyone else. So we want to show those kids pictures. But again, the ones that I guess found the kids is the TBI. I hate to sound redundant, but we need the federal marshals and we need the feds in on this.
You mentioned the Proudfoots, Chris and Katie Proudfoot. Katie Proudfoot, for those who haven't been following this, is the mother of Sebastian. She was the last person to see him. Chris, the stepfather, and we invited them on tonight. We did get a hold of them. They declined. Joe, there has...
They are. Of course they will.
Joe, there's been some pretty nasty rhetoric going on online. Not only, not just people attacking the Proudfoots, but Seth Rogers has been the victim here of a lot of hate. Why? Where is that coming from?
I think a lot of people have a lot of time on their hands. Chris, I think what happens is they get caught up in their own rhetoric, as you said, and their own story. And they want to try and create headlines. They want to try and create something that's not there. They create smoke, and then they point to the smoke that they created. And you're sitting there going, stop, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. And yet they don't care because the smoke generates more advertising, more smoke, and more people. And they have attacked not only Seth, but anybody who's aligned themselves with Seth Rogers. Seth is and Dog and all these individuals are trying to help find this young man, and they constantly are attacking anybody who's ever latched on to Seth Rogers and the search for Sebastian. And that should send up signals. I've been practicing in the criminal defense and criminal prosecution world for almost 20 years and prosecute sexual offenders and other types of cases, kidnapping cases. And it should send up a red flag to law enforcement of people who are degrading and putting down and trying to drag through the mud the people who are helping. And so these bloggers and these content creators, there are some that are very helpful and getting the name out and the information out. And then there are others who are just, like you said, dragging people through the mud for their own education and their own desires to get headlines and people to come and listen to them. And to me, as Andy Warhol said, everybody gets their 15 minutes of fame, but their 15 minutes are up. And we're tired of it. And we're not going to sit tight and let these people utilize these powerful platforms online to drag and defame individuals who are trying to find, one who's trying to desperately find his son, and others who are trying to find this young man on behalf of his father and his family. And so we have taken action, and we are moving forward in everything we can to stop it and continue doing investigation here, and that is to find Sebastian.
Dog, when you have a mother who does not seem to want to participate in the search for her child, at least publicly, what does that tell you, mother and stepfather, the Proudfoots I'm speaking of?
Well, brother, I'll leave that up to your viewers to decide. As far as I've done this way over 40 years, and I lost a baby girl, Barbara Katie, at 22 years old. 19 years ago, I barely still can talk about it. So that is like unbelievable. And I also heard that there's witnesses that once Sebastian was in the front yard and Chris Proudfoot was screaming at him, and he called him a retard, and Sebastian hit the ground and started bawling. So, I mean, you know, all these, what is the old saying, all roads point to Rome? I mean, you know, this is like almost obvious.
Well, if they were involved, though, Doug, then one would think they didn't have a ton of time. They didn't have a ton of sophistication, one would think. Where is Sebastian, and how could they, let's say the worst did happen, how would they have gotten away with it? Is this a shoddy investigation from day one?
Well, you know, somewhat. You know, somewhat. It's the police officer, it's the TBI. I guess their lead guy is ahead of it. So, yeah, you know, put blame where it falls. That guy, it's just incredible. I can't believe that. You know, but what so far what our leads could say, there is a manhole right in front of the Proudfoot's property. And they've said, yeah, the drone or the cops, somebody said, they flew drones in there. And there's like 3 foot of mud, okay? Then a dog, a really good dog, 2 of them, one of them stopped at the edge of the pond that was drained, and the other one jumped in the pond. You know, if Sebastian was put down that manhole into the mud, the scent would have carried to that pond. So I want to know why they haven't blocked that off, got in some kind of suit, and went on their hands and knees and looked in that, that manhole and all the way to the pond. Dogs, their sense of smell is so much more than a human being. And for a German Shepherd to jump in the water, well, they drain the pond. Yeah, because he could be in that manhole, in that little, cave, whatever they call it, inside there where it drains to that pond. So there's a lot of things that the TBI could be doing and haven't done nothing. Now, I heard they flew a drone in there. Well, you know how muddy that is and how thick a mud is in there? Flying a drone on top inside is not going to do nothing.
Yeah. All right, we're going to get a break. Coming up next, we're going to ask what is the current status of the investigation. Our guests are going to stay with us. Be back with more right after this.
There is no evidence to support foul play is involved in the disappearance of Sebastian.
But at this point, you don't rule it out?
We're not ruling anything out.
Everybody says I went to the wrong crowd, but I think I was the wrong crowd.
Nobody in this world loves you like your parents.
And he said to me, when if you close, I came with your hands and had a party.
I couldn't get out of my head. I couldn't stop.
Which do you think you are? Sick and treatable or irredeemably mad?
Interview with a Killer. Season finale, Sunday, 8/7 Central. And don't miss the new season coming in 2025, only on Court TV.
There is no evidence to support foul play is involved in the disappearance of Sebastian.
But at this point, you don't rule it out?
We're not ruling anything out.
At this point, we don't have any evidence. There is not any kind of an indication that there is a criminal element involved. But we are keeping options open. We don't know what has happened. We don't know where Sebastian is right now, so we are pursuing any and all avenues.
That was Sumner County Sheriff's deputies Eric Craddock and Susan Hyland of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. She was the second person, obviously, at a press conference in the months after Sebastian was reported missing. About the same time, Deputy Craddock spoke with reporter Nick Barris from WTVF in Nashville about whether or not they had cleared anybody from the immediate family as being a suspect in this case. Take a listen.
We have not cleared anyone, but we have absolutely no evidence to support foul play.
That was in April of 2024, a little more than a month into the search for Sebastian, and the official word from police was that nobody's been cleared, but still there's no evidence of foul play, yet one would think that foul play absolutely is involved here. And that brings us to our next question. What is the current status of this investigation so many months after Sebastian Rogers first went missing? We still have with us Dog the Bounty Hunter and his lawyer to keep him in check, Joe Lesniak. Dog, you're in Tennessee. What's going on? Is there anything you can share with us in terms of new developments in your investigation?
Officers, you know, I respect law enforcement so much, and they were saying that way back then that they had no leads. Okay, nobody should be charged or blah blah blah. But now, what about now? What about today? What about last week? I think you guys need to do interviews now. Update everybody. What about right now after all these things have come forward? And a lot of people online, whatever, are saying, Dog, what gives you the right? What gives you the right? You're a bounty hunter. What gives you the right? Well, what gives me the right is Tennessee has one of the greatest of all time laws. It's called the Citizen's Right to Arrest Law. You talk about booting a door in and going in and grabbing them. I can do that. I'm a citizen. Whether I'm Dog the Bounty Hunter, Dwayne Lee Chapman, or I have the right as a citizen of the United States of America to put in custody and take out the person that hurt or whatever happened to little Sebastian.
So, are you onto something?
Yes, sir.
Can you share?
Well, no, because they'll run. I know who the weakest link is. You get in Tennessee, brother, that's the death penalty. That is the death penalty. Would they rather go to lethal injection, or would they rather be paroled in 20 years or something? They still would have time to, live a life. So that one of the Tennessee carries the death penalty.
Let me get this straight. You're on to a lead. You're there in Tennessee. You're actively pursuing it. And
yes, sir.
Now, I get that you have the right to move forward with what you believe is possibly detaining an individual or two, or I don't want any details because you're being cagey, but do you have to alert law enforcement before you make any sort of a move to let everybody know, hey, I'm here and here's what I'm doing?
No, sir. I don't have to alert no one. I cannot transport. I can arrest, cuff, and then the cops come or whoever to read that person their rights, and transport them to jail. I can do everything but read them their rights or transport. But under the law, the United States of America, I can arrest.
Give us a little hint, like, did you is this someone who has always been part of the landscape, or is this something new? And don't jump in, Joe, and have him stop.
Yeah, well, I have to jump in and have him stop. Dwayne, a Dog, you can't, yes, Ted, both of them are possibly right. So good questions, but yes. There's a private investigator also involved that we need to keep secure as well. So I know you're looking for information, but we got to be careful how far we go.
Talk about then. All right, we're going to let this play out, and hopefully we'll be one of your first calls when you make a break in this case. We're all hoping that, because that's what everybody's hoping for. In fact,
well, I carry a film crew with me everywhere I go, brother.
Yes, the reward up to $170K, $175,000. That's a lot of money. There seems to be a lot of interest in this country still in finding Sebastian, which is fantastic. Can you talk about the people that you have behind you, Dog, that are helping to support your investigation?
Well, there's several, many, and I can't name their names, but it's all, it's not like we're preaching in a church and taking offering, but there are a lot of people that have pledged their money to it's kind of tricky about rewards, okay? We want what happened to Sebastian. So the reward goes to whoever can tell us where Sebastian is and or what happened to him. And Joe, I hope this doesn't get me in trouble, but brother, since you've heard all this and you guys are good at Court TV, and who do you think did it?
Joe won't let me answer, so I'm going to just leave it at that.
Attorney Ted, go ahead.
Gentlemen, thank you for all you're doing, and because the goal is here to find this young man, find Sebastian Rogers, hopefully alive and well. Joe Lesniak, Dwayne Chapman, Dog the Bounty Hunter, thank you both for everything, and keep us updated, please, as this continues, this investigation.
Well, thank you for having us on and keeping this at the forefront. It's shows like this that really help to, like you said, keep it moving forward and keep it on people's minds, because as time goes on, we as American people will lose sight of it. So thank you.
You got it. All right. I'm Ted Rowlands. We're going to keep digging for answers as this investigation continues. I'm Ted Rowlands in for Vinnie Politan. This is Vinnie Politan Investigates, and the subject of our investigation is a missing 15-year-old boy with autism. He was last seen on the night of Sunday, February 25th. His name, Sebastian Rogers, and this is his story. 15-year-old Sebastian Rogers seemingly disappeared without a trace from his home in Hendersonville, Tennessee, where he was living with his mom and stepdad. His mom said he went to bed, and in the morning, he was nowhere to be found. Investigators reportedly have no suspects, no leads, and no evidence of what happened to Sebastian. How is that possible? And where is Sebastian? The last known whereabouts of a missing person is always critical information for investigators. Who saw him last? When you're trying to figure out what to do next, you have to know where he was. What were the movements of that individual and the people around him? So what do we know about Sebastian Rogers' last known whereabouts? His mother, Katie Proudfoot, and her husband, Chris Proudfoot, sat down with the Chronicles of Olivia, YouTube creators, and Katie shared what she remembers from Sunday, February 25th, the last time she claims she saw Sebastian.
He said, "All right, good night, Mama. Good night, puppies. Love you." And went to bed. He was doing something in his room because about an hour later I heard some noise, and I was like, "I don't care what you're doing in there, but go to sleep." And about midnight, I got up and I went to bed. And 6 o'clock, I went to wake him up for school Monday morning, and that's when he wasn't here.
Katie Proudfoot says she heard a noise coming from Sebastian's room after he went to bed, about 10 o'clock. And when she went to wake him up the next morning around 6 a.m., she said he was gone, which begs our next question. Was Sebastian's mom the last person to see him? Is that accurate? Did someone else see him? Was someone else there? Well, investigators say they don't believe so. At least there's no indication for it. Let's bring in YouTube live streamer behind Gray Hughes Investigates. He is Gray Hughes, and he's looked into this case along with some other ones. Gray, what's your take here in terms of that question? And do you believe that what Katie Proudfoot has said is true.
Well, what she's saying really could be true. Her room is actually kitty corner all the way across the house on the other side. So if Sebastian somehow got out of the house, she might not have heard it if it was between 12 and 6 in the morning. And I mean, there's a lot of speculation out there that, you know, you keep hearing it from everybody out there that keeps trying to insinuate that the Proudfoots have something to do with it, where law enforcement's already said that they can find no evidence of foul play. The family's done everything that they've asked. And, you know, they've done everything they were asked, and they are not suspects. But I guess everybody's a suspect until you find, I guess one of the things that I think is interesting is that, you know, there's all these rumors that people come up with, and they show these, like a set of lights. I mean, maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit, but it actually turns out that's
Well, talk about that, yeah, because at 3 a.m. you had this surveillance video that seems to, in some people's minds, show that there's maybe 2 flashlights. One comes into frame, goes out, comes back. Take us through that. Why don't you think that has any significance?
Well, they made it sound like originally that they were lights by Sebastian himself and some other individual, but it turns out they're lights up on a road behind that little neighborhood there, and it's like a garbage truck. And you know, I actually, believe it or not, Chris Proudfoot sat and explained it to me for like 40 minutes, really in detail, because they've seen the video, so they know exactly what those lights are. So this case could be one where, you know, there might be another person involved, because he did have more access to his cell phone with his biological father. He was able to get online and so forth. And also, you know, how do we know it's not something like Harley Dilly? Do you remember that case at all? There was a case where this kid walked out of his house. He went missing. Everybody was looking for him. It turns out he went up on a roof inside of a chimney, and they actually found him inside the wall there later. So there could be something where he snuck away and fell into something, and they just haven't found him yet. But I'm not extremely suspicious or anything like that of the Proudfoots, but I can't say that they don't have anything to do with it. I just haven't seen anything at all that points to them, other than the timing issue.
You say you sat with Chris Proudfoot. Was this face-to-face?
No, it was just a phone call. I had a map out, and I would send him a picture back and forth and put arrows, and he'd go, yeah, that house right there had the camera on it, and you see this light in this area, and then he showed up on the top of the hill. I can't remember the name of the road here. Let me see if I can find it. It's called Honeysuckle Drive, is where there was a garbage truck up there that was moving, apparently around that time. But that's what the lights are. They're not these people running around in the neighborhood. It's amazing how people come up with these stories, because it's more sensationalistic and gets more clicks and views, but it never happened. There weren't people walking around with flashlights taking Sebastian away at that time.
All right. Garbage trucks at 3 a.m. I guess you heard the whole story, exactly. And you bought it. So in an earlier interview, we played that clip of Sebastian's dad. This is his reaction. Watch.
I'm not here to sling mud, but why is she asking Chris to verify what she did on Sunday when Chris wasn't here on Sunday? Or the fact that she said that she heard a thump on another interview and didn't bother to check on our son. You know, there's a difference between some noise or a thump.
Great. What do you make of Seth Rogers? He does seem to have feelings towards the Proudfoots, but of course, you're talking about a marriage, you're talking about a child that's missing and the other spouse. What's your gut on Seth and why you believe he thinks they may have had something to do with it?
Well, I just think that's sort of like a dispute back and forth. I mean, he's the ex-husband, and he's blaming the Proudfoots. I don't think he has any more information than anybody else, or he would have told the police, and they'd be investigating that angle. So it's just, I think it's just bad blood between them. And when the mother said something about a noise, it wasn't quite as nefarious sounding. She just said she heard a thud and said, "Hey, be careful in there," and he responded or something. Go to sleep, and he responded, and everything seemed normal. And he's just gone in the morning. So, I mean, we don't know if that's a true story because that's just what she's telling us, but, What do you think?
What does your gut tell you? Do you think that he left the house voluntarily for whatever reason, and then something happened there outside? Or the problem with that scenario, of course, is that, well, why haven't we found him? Enough time has gone by, enough searching has been done. It seems as though the resources were there, at least in those early days and weeks, to thoroughly search this area. One would think, unless, like you say, he fell into some sort of cavern, they'd find him by now. He should be found if he just walked out of the house.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he did meet somebody and that went wrong, or he walked quite a ways outside the perimeter of where they'd be searching and something happened to him in that area. I mean, I heard you on the previous portion, you're saying something sort of similar to that, like you don't really know, what happened to him. I mean, I guess it's one of those weird cases out there where somebody just seemingly vanished, because what's the proof that the Proudfoots did anything? Where would the
I agree. There's like that the Proudfoots are not these mastermind criminals unless, for them to, let's say something happened and they did something horrible. If in that scenario, where is he? Still, there's a problem with why at this point wouldn't they have been able to find either evidence of something in the house, evidence of where he could be. It seems this really is a mystery, and it's a heartbreaking mystery because we're talking about a 15-year-old boy. We're gonna get a break. Still to come. Did Sebastian Rogers walk away?
He would never leave my house in the middle of the night barefoot, and if he did, he wouldn't. He wouldn't.
This case clearly on the national forefront, brutal murder of this young woman, Laken Riley.
Investigators say she was beaten to death while going on a run.
This is a heartbreaking time for the university. We have a suspect in custody, Jose Antonio Ibarra. He did not know her at all.
Such a violent, unprovoked act. Will there be justice for Laken Riley?
The murder of Laken Riley. Live coverage weekday mornings, only on Court TV.
He would never leave my house in the middle of the night barefoot, and if he did, he wouldn't. He wouldn't. We've left in the middle of the night. There's been times that we've gone fishing in the middle of the night. We plan that sort of stuff. But him walking out the door in the middle of the night, no. It's not something he would do. It's something he's never done on me.
That is Sebastian Rogers' father, Seth. He said, you heard him. He would never walk away from his house alone, but Sebastian was at his mother's house that night, the night that he was last seen. The neighborhood and surrounding area all thoroughly searched early on in this investigation. Ponds and other bodies of water were drained and searched. Tracking dogs and their handlers walked the area looking for Sebastian's scent. Interestingly, an audio recording circulating online sounds like it could be a radio transmission from a canine handler during the search for Sebastian. The speaker references several places near Sebastian's home, like the construction site, the cemetery, and a retention pond. The link to the audio file was uploaded to Twitter by SF Investigates, but it's unclear where the recording came from originally. Take a listen.
Nice big track back up, going into the construction site over here, back towards the beach. The one behind you. It's awful muddy. Do you see any footprints or anything? You shouldn't have any shoes on. Thing is, this is all dry, hard packed. Outside report. LT, we're now headed back south towards the cemetery on the far end of the construction site. That's boy, I can see. I do have some footprints over here. Right there where you're standing? Yeah, leading right over here to the retaining pond. No shoes, just footprints. The shoes that Max went straight into the pond. He literally dove into it.
So, if that's true, the dog going right into that pond was drained. That brings us to our next question. Did Sebastian walk away overnight? You heard his father say there's no way he would have done that. Never did that at my house when he stayed with me. Did he do it, though, at his mother's? So with us, YouTube live streamer behind Gray Hughes Investigates. He is Gray Hughes. What's your assessment of that audio, the dog handlers saying that at least one of the dogs alerted at this pond and it even jumped in? Your thoughts on that? And what the pond was drained, right?
Yeah, it was drained, and there was nobody found in it. You know, it's sort of interesting because also in a conversation with Chris Proudfoot, it was in the same conversation. By the way, I just, you know, when you say, like, I bought it, you know, the thing is we were having a conversation, and even I would start pointing in the wrong direction. He goes, no, it's over here. So he was, like, really certain of what he's telling me. So, you know, either maybe I'm just horrible at reading people, but he seemed really genuine. When he was talking to me, he told me the path that the dog sent it. You know, he went on Kelly Lane, and then, so you had the map up earlier, and then basically on Devon Court, and then right there on, I think it's called Parkenham Drive. That's right where the detention pond is, and it's right near, so where that little sign that says water on the upper middle, that's right, just to the right of that is where the retention pond actually is now. And he said that that's where the dog hit, right there. So he's probably aware of that exact same call, because just to the right of that's the cemetery right there. So it's right next to that detention pond. And like you said, they searched it and there was, you know, they didn't find anybody. Perhaps he walked right near it. You know, like perhaps he was meeting somebody at that school over there next to the, you know, like there's a football stadium, et cetera. So it's possible that he walked over there and somebody picked him up and they were a nefarious actor. Because if he did, I mean, if that dog did track him over there, then he likely left on his own, right? Because you're not going to have the mother, like in the middle of the night, walk him over to the pond. You would think, you know, using common sense, that it would be him leaving to meet somebody or going with some other individual.
Well,
right?
on the Pascal show on YouTube, Seth Rogers shared what law enforcement told him about the dogs tracking Sebastian's scent. Take a listen.
One of the dog handlers told me first day, Monday, that the dog popped to a trail and they followed it and went all the way around and it ended in a construction site, but it ended. It's like there was nothing there.
Right. And that's a little odd, which right?
Leads me to believe that, well, if it ends, normally the scent ends when you stop traveling on foot. From my understanding, that would mean that he got into a car.
Gray Hughes, that's basically what you're insinuating as well there. Did Sebastian have electronics, phone? I know he had an iPad, but was there any evidence, digital evidence, that he was communicating with somebody that may have lured him out?
Not that we're aware of, but apparently when he would stay with his biological father, Seth, there. He was allowed to be on the internet and be on social media sites, but he wasn't allowed with the Proudfoots. So I don't know if somehow he communicated with somebody, perhaps some, catfishing type person, and he met up with them and something bad happened. That's what we don't know, but we don't have any evidence ourselves that there was digital communication with somebody on the outside. That's just the speculation you might make, because he was really not allowed to do that with the Proudfoots, but when he would stay with his father, a biological father, he was allowed to do that. So maybe during those trips, he was able to make communication with somebody and set something up.
The thing I keep coming back to is that it's not that large of an area, and the timing. Do we know, was he seen in public the evening before on the 25th? Was he out with mom somewhere where they have a definitive, here is the last time he was seen outside of the Proudfoot home?
Yeah, I think they went to, if I remember right, I think it was like pizza or something. They did go out earlier in the evening. Then they came home, and I don't know if anybody saw him outside like late into the evening or something like that playing, and then he goes inside the house and then eventually goes to sleep and makes that sound, etc. I mean, that's the thing is, none
and
of
that's
us
the problem with the
know.
if he the timing there isn't a huge window for if you think the Proudfoots did it or all right. That would require them to first something happened, then they have to cover up and not leave any evidence in the house, successfully move him, and then get back to the house and call 911 after they can't find him at 6 a.m. The window's not that large in terms of transporting and disposing, given the search the next day. Right?
Yeah, no,
it's a mystery.
Also, yeah, and also I think it's. Wasn't Chris Proudfoot not even there? I mean, he was at his work job site, I believe. So that means you have to have her be this mastermind and perpetrate, something happened at home and she got him in the car and did something and came back, and nobody's ever got information from any of them at all. And, law enforcement said they can find no evidence of foul play. So that means even they've looked inside the vehicles, they've checked everything, and they can find absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where it's just one of those bizarre stories at this point.
And again, a heartbreaking story, because at the end, the subject of it is a 15-year-old that nobody knows where he is. Gray Hughes, thank you.
Exactly.
Sebastian Rogers went missing on the same day as another teenager, Madeline Soto. And as tragic as her death is, at least Soto's family has answers as to where Madeline is. Sebastian's family and friends are left with this huge hole because of his disappearance, and they don't know what happened to him. I cannot imagine being a parent and dealing with that frustration. Where could Sebastian be? They are still looking for answers. We assume the GBI is still working away. They're just tight-lipped. And Dog the Bounty Hunter, he's on it. A lot of people around this country are looking for him. Hopefully there'll be answers sooner than later. I'm Ted Rowlands. We'll keep digging for answers as this investigation continues.